Excellent. Thank you all for being here. So, we are going to be discussing AI for executives, AI for strategic planning for leadership teams. We're going to be looking at all the ways that your C-suite can get incredible value out of these tools, such as ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, etc. First question might be, who am I? My name is Ross Hartmann. I'm the founder of Kiingo AI. We help others with training and using these tools effectively, getting an ROI from them. We help with strategy development and also creation and adoption of things like AI agents. So I've been working in the AI field for quite a while. I'm a recovering software developer, and we've helped companies of various sizes design and implement AI roadmaps and strategies. So some of the things that I want to talk a little bit about today. I want to talk a little bit about the state of AI, where it is today, what it does particularly well on, what it doesn't, and where we can use it for strategic thinking and for better use cases. We'll also go over a couple of possible areas you can use this for your leadership team. So again, some of those use cases. If we want to, we can get into a little bit of a prompt engineering crash course as well, but I've got a ton of demos for us to do. I will say, please feel free to ask any questions throughout. Happy to answer any questions along the way. I want to go through here and note some of the demos that I have planned for us. We can go into some strategic thinking. So we can do some pricing decisions, like when would I want to raise my prices? How would I want to do that effectively? If a competitor is in a price war with you, you can do competitive move simulation and think about what they might do. So kind of some wargaming there. We can build a competitive strategy for a company. And then there's also decision bias audit. So a lot of interesting opportunities there we can go into. We can also do some specific demos around data analysis, specifically around finance. So again, some more strategic planning and scenario planning, but on the side of using AI for decision making and analyzing spreadsheets. That's another fun one. AI can be used for, as I'm about to show you, it can basically be used to solve your real world problems. That's where the real opportunity is here. So you can use it for creative tax strategies, competitive intelligence, M&A acquisition targets. We'll talk about a number of those things. All right. So if you also just want to tell me, hey, we've got a problem in our company and I don't know how to solve it, tell me what the problem is and we will use AI to solve it. That's where the real opportunity is. So before we dig into these specific demos that I want to go over and show you how you can use this for your CEO or your executive team, I want to talk about the state of AI. So today, and this doesn't mean this is you, but for most of the people that I speak with, they use AI as a fancy Google search, or maybe they use it as a content creator. So they use it for creating job descriptions and memos and blog posts and disaster recovery plans. There's nothing wrong with this. This is good and fine, and you'll get good value out of AI doing this. But in my opinion, this is almost the lowest form of value that you can get. There's a ton of other opportunities. Now, what most people want to use AI for, they want to use it for responding to emails, checking their availability on their calendar, filling out forms, right? You want to use it as an agent that will actually do your work. Now, I want to tell you that this is possible, and I'm sure that we will do a session on this in the near future. But you can use tools like Claude, for instance. Let me just share my screen real quick. You can tie Claude into your HubSpot, your Notion, Asana, Salesforce, Outlook, your calendar, your SharePoint, your Teams, whatever it is. And you can just ask Claude to do things for you. So go pull the most recent uh, go pull the most recent meeting that I had with this company and then update our CRM records for that person and then put in tasks and owners in our task management or project management system based on those conversations. So AI can actually take action for you and do things in your environment. We're not going to focus on that today, however. Because that does require you to be a little bit more technical, a little bit more advanced. We can go over that in a future session. Where you can get the most value today is using AI to accelerate your thinking. Do you want to be a better leader, decision maker, strategist, tactician? Sure, you do. Everybody does, right? If you are a leader in your company and you want to do these things more effectively, you want to be better at delegating, at feedback delivery, at motivating your team, better at hiring, better at setting goals. All of these things you can do using AI because here is the mindset shift I want to give to you. Here you go. What if, and I mean this in a fairly real sense, what if you had unlimited access to Peter Drucker for strategy and management decisions, or Chris Voss for negotiation and sales, or Warren Buffett for investment decisions? I mean this very literally. What if you could call up Warren Buffett at any time and say, hey, Warren, we're thinking about purchasing this other company, or we're thinking about this capital investment. What do you think about this? How would this look for our company? Where am I making mistakes, etc.? What am I not thinking of? Where are the other blind spots I might have? What if you could call up Malcolm Gladwell about your market insights? What if you could call up Ray Dalio for systems thinking or Brene Brown for leadership and culture? What if all these people were at your fingertips where you could ask them anything about your thinking and about how you could make best decisions? How much would that be worth to you? And how much would it be worth to your company more broadly? And I'm sure the answer is basically a pretty penny. That would be worth a good amount, right? I'm sure you can guess what I'm about to say. You already have access to all of these people. Yes, you do. All of the world's experts, professionals, thought leaders, they are encoded in this AI model inside of this black box. Now, the challenge for us is we need to know how to get the insights out of the model so that it does give us the advice and the wisdom of Warren Buffett, for instance. And then additionally, and the second piece, which is maybe even more important, we have to remember to use these tools. If you didn't catch our session on developing an AI culture and how you actually implement this into your company, please feel free to go check back on that. We go over a little bit about developing a behavior and a habit on using AI. So here's the gist with this. I want you to continue thinking about how you can use AI agents to automate your work. That's good. That's valuable. That's going to reduce costs for you, where that's going to allow you to be more productive and your company grow revenue without growing headcount. But in addition to thinking about AI tactically, I want you to think about AI strategically. So, what do I mean by this? Language models are not just productivity tools. Yes, they are, but there's so much more than that, right? They are strategic business accelerators. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, you can point a language model like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, one of these AI models at your real world problems, at your growth levers in your company. So, we want to get new customers. We want a higher conversion rate in our prospects or our leads. We want to have smarter pricing so that we can be more effective and increase the lifetime value of a customer. We want stronger retention of our client base, or maybe we want stronger retention of our partnership channel. Whatever it is, you can use AI to validate your next big product idea or service idea, challenge your assumptions just like a board would, right? Explore scenarios you hadn't considered, do some war gaming. What would happen if we did this? How would they respond? What are the top 5 most likely ways that they would respond, and how would we counterpunch in that case? Get expert level input on your decisions, build competitive strategy, develop your people faster. And so the question is not, can AI help me? It's, how can I best leverage AI to outpace my competitor in my strategic thinking? How can I use AI as a business accelerator, as a intelligence augmentation tool that will make me more effective? That's the key to using these tools. Now, before I get into some of the demos here, which I think we're gonna go over Claude, we're gonna go over ChatGPT, and I'm hoping to show you some good prompts and some good use cases. I want to talk about some examples of just more concrete examples of where you could use these tools. Where can you get strategic intelligence out of ChatGPT, for instance, without the consultant price tag? All right. So every CEO needs to answer 3 questions. Now, there's a lot more questions, but these are some of the big ones, right? Where should we compete? What could blindside us? And how do we get there from here? And the question here is, or the thought here is that you might hire a consultant to help you answer these questions, and you're paying big money for a consultant in this area. What if AI could give you 80% of this insight in 10 minutes? Of course, I'm going to show you a little bit about how you can do that. You might be drowning in information. You get 50 industry reports and competitor updates and customer feedback docs every month, right? The solution is using AI for rapid market trend synthesis. So taking in analyst notes, patents, news, and one-page briefs, having AI actually monitor that news for you and update you daily or weekly. It can be written in plain English, not consultant speak. It can be targeted at your specific company, not just the industry in general. AI can synthesize, can take information, synthesize it, and help it make sense to you, and explain it in a way where it comes across most effectively, basically. Another key use case when using AI strategically is scenario planning. So what if our biggest customer leaves? What if our competitor drops prices 20%? What if we enter the Texas market? All these kinds of what ifs, right? Wouldn't it be interesting if this happened, or I'm afraid of this happening? AI can create this sort of war games for you. So you can say, what's the base case, the best case, and the worst case? And it can help you. You don't have to do all these spreadsheets yourself. It can actually build them for you and do that actual financial planning. It can update assumptions that you might have, help you stress test decisions before your board meetings, and basically help you with wargaming and counterpunching as well. And that's similar to this example here. So before you launch a new price or a product, you can say, how might competitors respond to this? What counter moves might they make? How could we build our response plan now? And the key also with this is you want to feed it information about your company and who your competitors are. And then with that information, it's going to be more accurate in simulating what their moves might be. It can also help you with hidden growth opportunities. So it can be sort of a strategic white space finder. What can we do that others can't? What is our unique positioning in the industry? And of course, you want to update the AI about who you are and what you do. What market needs are uniquely positioned? What market needs are we uniquely positioned to serve? And where do our capabilities overlap with unmet demand? And it can also do some trend analysis in the industry more broadly so that it can find some of those unique unmet demand positions. And then it can cross map your strength to market gaps automatically, create dashboards, of course, create visualizations if you want to convey this to other folks in your company. Of course, and this is a big one, we use this all the time, is understanding your growth engine. A fun prompt here is go to ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, have it research your company, and then tell it to give you the calculus of growth for your company. Every business has these constraints. Can we get leads? What's our demand generation capacity? Can we close those leads? What's our sales capacity here? Can we deliver capacity? So how does our operations team work on this front? And then can we fund growth? What's our cash flow look like? AI can help you identify your bottlenecks and then widen those bottlenecks, increase your conversion from each stage to the next. So before we get into these demos, some of the key takeaways I want you to take from this: AI does not replace your judgment. It simply amplifies it with faster and broader analysis. You still have to be part of the thinking process here. It is an intellect amplification tool. It is not something to replace your thinking. You start with the questions you're already asking, you just get answers 10 times faster, right? And then additionally, beyond that, you can go to the questions that you are not asking, and that's where the real value comes from. The CEO who learns this now has a 2-year advantage over competitors, at least. You have this advantage to use AI for strategic thinking where others just are not doing this. They're thinking about how can I use it to respond to my emails, or how can I be using it to fill out invoice forms, etc. No, you want to be using it for growing your business. So let's get into some of these examples of where you can use AI to grow your company. So I'm going to go over a few things here. The first one I want to go over is decision bias and red team challenge. So I'm going to give you a few prompts and show you what's possible. And I want to show you different models that you can use as well. And actually, before I dig into this, though, one of the common things that I get from companies is I could use AI for strategic thinking, but you know what? I'm just kind of afraid to put our data into it. I don't really trust it, right? If that is you, I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to put that to ease for you. First thing you should know, and I want to make this incredibly clear and no nonsense here. ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, they do not share your data with other users. They do not share your data with other users. I don't care if you're on the free plan or the enterprise plan, they don't do it. Okay. So that's a common misconception. I hear over and over, well, if we put our data into this tool, everybody else is going to have it. Not true. They do not share it explicitly. What they do is they train on your data by default. So now this is kind of a roundabout way. It is possible in the future for a sophisticated actor to pull out data from a model that was trained on your information using a model inversion attack. Now I want to show you how you can turn that off and not be concerned about this. Go to your settings, go to data controls in ChatGPT, and there's a setting called improve the model for everyone. You want to make sure that this is off. Remember that this is on by default, so you need to turn it off for you and all of your employees. I would also recommend for your company that you get ChatGPT for Business. If you get the ChatGPT Business plan, this turns this setting off by default and it locks it in the off position so you don't even have to worry about it, right? Now, there are some other considerations. Even if you turn this off, your data is still saved on their servers. It is possible for you to host OpenAI models on your Microsoft tenant. That gets into a whole other thing. So this is going to be AI Foundry in Azure. We don't want to talk about this in detail because this gets a lot more technical. But the gist of this is that you can host these models in your Microsoft tenant on your own servers. You control the data, nothing goes to OpenAI, etc. If you want to talk about this, please feel free to reach out to me. But for most companies, they're just going to want to use ChatGPT for Business, and then training is turned off. There's no concern on that front. I want to show you also in Claude, you have to privacy. And then you have to, at the very bottom, turn off help improve Claude. So there's a setting at the bottom that says help improve Claude. Make sure that that is off. Gemini, same thing, right? So I just want to put that, lay that out there. You can use these tools safely and in a secure way, provided you set up your environment correctly for you and for your company. And those are some of the initial things that you have to do. All right, so let's get into some bias and decision kind of auditing. So this is a big one, right? You as an executive, you are making decisions all the time, and you're likely making mistakes. You likely have biases. You're falling victim to kind of common decision mistakes. This is not unique to you. This is absolutely everybody. And you might not also have people on your team who are able to push back on you or who might understand some of the common biases here. So how are we going to unlock that? We're going to unlock some of your thinking shortfalls, for instance, using AI. Now, before we do that though, I want to show you how you can get even better results from ChatGPT. Because another common thing beyond just, hey, is AI training on my data, is I don't get very good results. Many people say this to me. I don't get good results when I use AI. I see you do all these amazing things, but I don't get the same results. Well, here's one of the reasons why. In the top left-hand corner, you need to select the model that you want to use for solving whatever problem you have. Now, for a lot of folks, they're going to be using the free version or they're going to be on the auto version, which is at the top. The way to know you're on auto, go to the top left, click this drop down, and you will see auto selected, or you'll just see GPT-5 in the top left-hand corner. If you're on the free version, you are using auto. This is kind of it's the model that routes you to different other models. And spoiler alert, it mostly routes you to the cheapest model for OpenAI. So it mostly routes you to GPT-5 Instant. This is basically the dumb model. So when you are thinking about how am I getting something to analyze my thinking and give me strategic use cases and such, you do not want to be using the dumb model. You want to be using the thinking model, which is the far more intelligent model. So if you have ChatGPT for Business, you will also have access to the Pro model. Or if you have you have ChatGPT Pro, which is $200 a month, you'll also have access to the Pro model. If you can stand it, I recommend using the Pro model. But other than that, use the thinking model. and you can select the level of thinking that you want for your challenge here. I'm going to turn it to extended thinking. You could also turn it to heavy thinking, but then it could think for, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes on its own. We're just going to let it think for 1 to 3 minutes. Now, I've got all the preamble out of the way, but this is all very important stuff. You need to make sure that your data is secure and you need to make sure that you have set yourself up to get high quality results. And you do that through selecting the right model and the amount of thinking. Okay. So here is uh, our kind of situation, and of course you can apply this to your company as well. I'm considering moving our 15, and this is a hypothetical, right? These are not real companies. I'm considering moving our 15 million ARR HR analytics SaaS company upmarket from mid-market to enterprise, right? So we have two strong leads, two strong inbound leads. This plan would require hiring 3 enterprise AEs, building enterprise CS team, and investing in compliance. This would extend our runway from 24 months to 18 months, um, or I guess reduce our runway, but promises 4 to 5 higher revenue per customer, times higher revenue per customer, right? So why I'm leaning this direction? There's a higher contract value, which means more efficient growth. Enterprise customers tend to be more stable or predictable. There's brand prestige, which can help with fundraising. The team is excited and aligned about this direction, and we've been leaving money on the table by not going after these deals. Now, what's concerning me is that the sales cycle might be longer, but the deal sizes make up for that. Compliance costs are high, but they're necessary for growth, right? So I want to note here, look at how much information we're putting into this prompt up front. We are really telling the model the full situation, what I'm thinking about, what I'm leaning towards, what concerns me, what my team is looking forward to, what we're doing, the pros and cons. I'm giving my full thought here before we actually tell the model to do anything. This is such an important point with when we talk about prompt engineering. So prompt engineering is how do I ask the questions in the right way to get the best answers? And I don't get the best answers until I ask my questions in this right way. And we've got a question. I'm just going to kind of take questions as they come, so please feel free to ask along the way. Since there are several language models on the market, could you give a brief overview on the benefits of each? For example, if I use ChatGPT or Gemini to generate responses for my foreign language lessons, which language model would be preferred? Yeah, this is a really good question. Okay, so a brief breakdown on the different models here. Um, I want to note a couple things. So first is that this is a horse race. And I mean that to say that basically, I will give you suggestions on which model I think is best today, but in a couple of weeks or even a couple of days, everything I say may be outdated. So you really have to stay on top of this technology and see how it is changing over time. ChatGPT in my mind is the best for reasoning today, especially when you use one of the pro models or the heavy thinking models. It's amazing at logic, math problems, those kinds of things. Really, really difficult word problems, for instance. But that could change. That could change next week. I just don't know. So this is a horse race. With all that said, I'm going to give you a snapshot of the industry today and what I really like these different models for. So I love ChatGPT for research. I think it's an excellent, just kind of I have 5 minutes. I want to get the best results that I can in 5 minutes. I'll use GPT-5 thinking with some extended thinking turned on. It's also good for deep analytical thought when there is a very challenging problem. And I don't just mean like a standard problem. I've actually found it if I have a non-difficult problem, just like a relatively easy problem, and I use GPT-5 Pro, I don't get that good of answers. So it needs to be a very difficult problem where you are challenging the model essentially. So this is really where I see ChatGPT doing very well today. A lot of companies will also use it for compliance, basically. It has some regulatory compliance that some of the others models don't if you're using the enterprise version. Enterprise version can give you HIPAA compliance, for instance. I believe you can also do that with Claude and Gemini on their enterprise versions. You can also go over the API and get them to sign a BAA. Okay, so that's ChatGPT. I will tell you right now, I'm actually a little bearish on ChatGPT in its current state. I think the Pro model is incredible. I use it all the time. It is worth paying for. But the model that I personally love today is Claude. And we'll go into this a little bit more. But this model is incredible, especially for this brainstorming and back and forth on problems that are not incredibly intellectually difficult. So if it's a very intellectually difficult problem, then I'm going to use GPT-5 Pro. But if it's just a difficult problem that I want some strategic thinking on and some brainstorming, then I'll use Claude. Another thing that Claude does well is it is willing to push back on me. So, as a leader, sometimes it's hard to find folks who are going to push back on you. That's something Claude does very, very well. It is not sycophantic. It does not want to be your friend. And so I use Sonnet 4.5 for that, and I can also turn on extended thinking. And we're going to run these same problems through Claude as well. Other things that Claude does well, it is a very good ecosystem for connecting into your software. Now, ChatGPT has this as well, but it mostly just pulls data from your software. So it mostly just pulls data from HubSpot or Salesforce, for instance. But Claude is amazing for actually pushing data. So making changes to your CRM and updating records, for instance. It's incredible at this. Also, their team version just got access to Outlook and SharePoint Teams, etc. And then one of the other things that Claude is very, very good at is visualization, dashboards, programming. It is also, in my opinion, in the lead when it comes to spreadsheets and creating Word documents. So again, right now, I really feel that Claude is in the lead. Now, this could change in the next couple of weeks or days, right? It does. So today, though, I would tell you Claude's the best for spreadsheets, the best for Word documents, in my opinion, the best for brainstorming, the best for having it push back on you, best for programming and visualization. There are some I don't want to say this, quality of life challenges with Claude. It only lets your conversations go on for so long. I find that to be very, very frustrating. And so you might run into that. For that on our team, we use Claude Code, which doesn't have that same challenge. Okay, then that brings us to Gemini. Gemini is another great model. Their model, though, 2.5 Pro, is about 6 months old now. It is definitely a bit behind when it comes to capabilities of the other models. We are expecting Gemini 3 to come out in the next, before the end of the year, is essentially the expectation. And I expect that when Gemini 3 comes out, it will be the top tier model. And then I will be telling everybody now you should go to Gemini. But you'll notice that I want you to keep your uses of these models agnostic. Don't say we use ChatGPT and that's the only one we use. Because it's very possible Claude is the best. Today, I would say Claude is the best. Gemini may be the best in a couple months from now. So you want to keep your prompts and your thinking, you want to keep your prompts in a prompt library that is stored outside of these AI workspaces. That'd be my direction there. Gemini is also the best at multimodality. So it is the best at creating images, editing images, understanding videos. It can watch and understand videos. It's a question as to which one is the best at understanding images and analyzing those. I would say that's pretty much a draw at the moment. As far as your specific use case for generating responses for foreign language lessons, the answer is I don't know, essentially. I don't know exactly because this is something when you go to a specific use case, like which is the best for X, Y, or Z, then I would just encourage you to try all of them. So they're all going to be a little bit different. They all have different personalities. They all have different, you're going to like their personalities differently, essentially. So I would encourage you to try each of them. If I had to guess, just based on what you're describing, I would try out Claude or Gemini. I would probably not think that ChatGPT is going to be the best for this. I could be wrong about that, but that would be my initial intuition is Claude or Gemini. All right. So that was a very long answer to your question, but yeah, I hope that was helpful. There's a ton of different opportunities in all the different models, and we'll be primarily looking at ChatGPT and Claude today. Okay, so going back to our challenge here with this, remember all of this data that I'm putting into the model, I'm doing some prompt engineering. And here's what we're going to tell it. You are a strategic decision analyst with expertise in B2B SaaS go-to-market strategy and cognitive bias identification. So we're trying to get it to identify our cognitive biases here, right? Your role is to help executives make better decisions by surfacing hidden context and assumptions. Now, notice I'm setting a role for the model up front. So I'm basically telling it what kind of role it should be playing and what kind of answers it should be giving me. I'm going to ask it to analyze this decision about whether we should go from mid-market to up-market or to enterprise here, right? And I'm going to say, I want you to think about stakeholder incentives, who benefits from this decision and how. Unstated assumptions, list the 8 to 10 assumptions that must be true for the strategy to work. Information asymmetries, what does the CEO likely know well versus what might have incomplete information? Decision pressure factors, what external or internal pressures might be rushing or biasing this decision, and success metrics. So how will the CEO know in 12 months if this was the right call? What does success actually look like? So I'm going to switch this back to the thinking model. If we had more time, and unfortunately we don't, I would use GPT-5 Pro. If I use GPT-5 Pro, it can think for anywhere from 10 minutes to 20 minutes, but it will give us a better answer. So I want to show you, if you're not familiar with these thinking models, they are pretty amazing, honestly. They will think before they speak. You can see on the right-hand side, I can open up their inner monologue and I can see what the model's actually thinking while it's working. I would encourage you to think about this more like an employee essentially that you give a task and you check back in on later. So I wouldn't recommend that you just sit here and wait for the results, even though we're going to do that because we're doing this demo. Um, I would instead say, here's the prompt. I'm going to go do something else. Let's actually go do something else. We'll come back to this at a later point. So you'll notice that we're going to kick off a number of demos and we're going to come back to them later. This is working asynchronously with AI, and this is a very common way to work with these tools. So we're also going to give this exact same prompt, nothing different, to Claude. I'm going to use Claude Sonnet 4.5, which is the best model right now. And then I'm going to turn on the best model in Claude or for the company Anthropic, and I'm going to turn on extended thinking. So just like I use the thinking model in ChatGPT, I'm going to use the thinking model or the version of the thinking model version of Sonnet 4.5 in Claude. So let's submit this as well. Let's read ChatGPT's answer here. And then let's read Claude's answer and we will compare the two. You'll notice also that you can see Claude's thinking process in here as well. Okay, so here's chat. Here's what it's telling us. Here's a blunt, decision useful map of the move from mid-market to enterprise for your HR analytics SaaS company. So the stakeholder incentives and where they create pressure, the CEO and the founding team. There's the benefits for the CEO and the founding team for moving mid-market to upmarket. There's category elevation, bigger narrative for fundraising, personal brand equity, potential valuation uplift. But the pressure creation is that prestige bias and narrative momentum can overweight the two inbound leads that we showed in the beginning here, and a temptation to bet the company to break into Fortune 500 as a market here. So the benefits are multiple expansion story, path to larger outcomes, easier later stage financing, but the pressure's subtle preference for growth optics over cash runway may push to move now while the market rewards enterprise mix. So you can see there's going to be different pros and cons for each of the stakeholders. Some of the unstated assumptions. So these are assumptions that maybe we are making, but we are not listing. We can close Fortune 500 with our current brand. We're assuming logo credibility and references are sufficient. What if procurement demands 2 to 3 peer Fortune 500 references force? Can we get those? I don't know. Sales cycles won't extend much beyond 18 months is an assumption that we might be making. We're assuming enterprise will be similar. What if true enterprise cycles are a year to 2 years with an extra 3 to 6 months for security and legal? So it's going through here and it's listing all of these assumptions that we might have. And again, we don't have to dig into all of these, but the key is to know that this model is going to help us think more clearly. That's where we want to use the models. And as CEOs, as executives, this is where we can get the most value. So there's also information asymmetries, what we likely know versus what's foggy. What we likely know is unit economics, the win-loss in mid-market, where the product creates ROI and which personas love it, etc. But the information that's incomplete, enterprise procurement base rates, we don't know the time and the failure models for different verticals. Reference requirements, the actual number or type of enterprise references would need it to pass committees. Competitive incumbency, budget and fiscal timing, uh, integration friction, price elasticity at 400K plus, hiring and market reality. And then the decision pressure factors. So the biases that we might want to name and then neutralize. So these are some of the cognitive biases that might be in our thinking when we're trying to make this decision. Recency and salience bias. Too hot inbounds feel like a secular shift. That could just be noise. It could just be coincidence that we got two inbounds for enterprise. Prestige and social proof. Enterprise logos and upmarket narratives are intoxicating, but that can truncate our diligence here. FOMO and pure benchmarking. So competitors tout enterprise pivots that may push a rush jump. We may feel like we're missing out on the enterprise side. Okay, so a number of other things. And then what 12-month success metrics might actually look like for us here. Now, one thing I want to note when we compare ChatGPT's answer to Claude, and I haven't read Claude's obviously, but I tend to find that ChatGPT is has a lot of jargon. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way, just that it uses a lot of acronyms. It's not afraid to go into very technical information. I find that to be very, very valuable if you are already a domain expert in this area. So if you look at all this and you know what all of the acronyms are, you know what it's trying to say here, then chat may be your solution when you're trying to solve a difficult problem. I tend to find that Claude is a little bit more human-like, essentially. So if we compare the results that Claude gives us to ChatGPT, let's take a look at that. So our stakeholder incentives map, the CEO, which is me in this scenario. The gains, career prestige, easier fundraising story, escape from the grind of mid-market deals. The hidden pressure here is we're likely tired of 18 month sales cycles. We want the sexier enterprise story, right? The risk blindness is that our reputation is tied to this, so it's harder to reverse course publicly. Now, I just want to note real quick the difference between what Chat was telling us and the way Chat was saying it versus Claude. So, Chat was talking about maybe enterprise value and our annual recurring revenue. So, but it was using the acronyms EV and ARR. Uh, Getting F500, so getting into again some acronyms, you'll notice Claude just explains things a little bit more down to earth, if you will. Let's look at some of the other answers from Claude. The unstated assumptions. We're assuming these two inbound leads represent repeatable but demand, but what if they're anomalies? Two data points is not a trend. Both could close and you still don't have product market fit at enterprise. So far, similar analysis. We're assuming our product is enterprise ready, but what if it requires 12 to 18 months of re-architecture? Enterprise expects SSO, advanced permissioning, audit logs, data residency. Do we have this? We're assuming that a 400K contract value with similar gross margins, but what if enterprise customers demand heavy customization or services? We're assuming we can sell to both markets simultaneously, but what if trying to do so to both means succeeding at neither? So it looks like Claude is giving us a few more assumptions that it is analyzing here. On the information asymmetries, what we likely know, your current mid-market customer pain points, your product's current capabilities and gaps, your team's skills and capacity. What we likely don't know is the enterprise buyer psychology, competitive dynamics at the enterprise level, our true product gaps, our implementation and services bundle, our burden rather, talent market for enterprise AEs, and the opportunity cost. So just looking through this, and you may have a different opinion here, and this is why we all like different models. Today, I prefer Claude at this type of challenge when we're talking about problem solving and brainstorming in this challenge is not a super highly intellectual problem. It is more of a bias problem, right? I need somebody to deliver me the bad news in a way that I can understand and that makes sense to me and that I'm going to accept. I tend to find that Claude is better for this type of thing. So I'm going to continue the conversation just with Claude, and you can, play with ChatGPT and Gemini as well and see how that might compare for you. But the questions that we're not asking in this use case is that why are we making a bet the company strategic shift based on two inbound leads and 18 months of runway? Let's see if ChatGPT gave us this questions we're not asking. So I see what good actually looks like, decision pressure factors, what we likely know versus what's foggy, unstated assumptions that might be true. I don't see anything in here about the questions that we're not asking. I don't see it pushing back on me. This is another thing about ChatGPT today. And again, this could change later. But ChatGPT is giving me the answer. It's giving me the thing I asked for, which is great. But it's not really pushing itself beyond that. It's just saying, hey, here's what you want. Here you go. Whereas Claude to me is saying, let's pump the brakes here. Yeah, here are the answers to all your questions. I'm going to give you your success metrics. I'm going to tell you your decision pressure factors. But you know what? You're getting ahead of yourself here. Here's some questions you're not asking. Why are you making this bet? What alternative hypothesis have you not pressure tested? So I want to dig through this a second. This is pretty cool. I love when Claude does this. It's pushing back on me when I didn't ask for it, basically. So it's saying, what if we dominate mid-market first? Take that same $2 million investment that we might be thinking about for enterprise and put it into five more mid-market AEs, a marketing machine to generate consistent mid-market pipeline, product features that make you the undisputed mid-market leader, customer success that drives 95% plus net retention. In 12 months, we're going to have 25 million ARR versus your current 15, all from mid-market, 36 plus months of runway with improved economics, a fundraising story. We own mid-market HR analytics. We're now scaling, and enterprise deals coming inbound because you're the obvious leader, not because you're chasing them. Then go enterprise from a position of strength, right? The final reality check for us, which again, ChatGPT did not give us, but Claude is, you're romanticizing enterprise because your mid-market is hard. Can I just say amen to this? You get it, right? Bigger deals won't make sales easier. They'll make them slower, more complex, and higher stakes. This is something that, in my opinion, chat would never tell me because it tends to be a little bit more wanting to please me. And you could say to an extent, Claude is almost it pushes back on you sometimes too much. Like it's like, okay, I don't want to hear your opinion here. Just give me the answer, right? So you can definitely have that kind of a feeling depending on which model you're using. It's also telling us 18 months of runway is a bet, not a buffer. If your first enterprise deal takes 24 months, which is common, you're going to be raising in a panic or you're going to be dead. The team is excited and aligned is a red flag, not a green light. True alignment would include skeptics who have modeled the downside scenarios. Excitement without dissent is groupthink. The move might be right, but not right now and not for these reasons. Okay, interesting. So Claude is taking a pretty firm stance with me here and saying, you know what? I think you're getting ahead of yourself. ChatGPT says, you asked for this information, here you go. Now, there are certain circumstances, of course, where I'm going to want to use ChatGPT because, Claude, I don't want to hear your opinion right now. I know what my opinion is. I just want you to give me the answers to the questions that I asked you. And if that's the case, then maybe you want to use chat. So here's our next thing I want to say. Our next prompt in this example, you're a behavioral economist and strategic advisor specializing in cognitive bias identification. Your goal is to help executives see their blind spots before making high stakes decisions. So it's going to list all of the potential biases here. So availability heuristic, the severity here is high. When we said we have two strong inbound leads, this appears as our primary justification for wanting to go up market. There's recent vivid examples, these two leads, no mention of sample size concerns or whether these are statistical outliers, and the decision framing starts with these leads suggesting they're driving the entire strategic shift. These two deals are disproportionately influencing a bet the company strategic shift. This is like changing your entire investment strategy because you met two people who got rich in crypto. This is the kind of stuff, and I know I love Claude today, and I may change back to chat, in a week or so. But this is the kind of stuff where Claude telling you this is just so much more valuable. This is putting it in terms where I can really understand, and this is a funny remark as well, right? you meet two people who are rich in this thing, they invested in this thing, and you're thinking, oh, great, I'm going to do that thing, right? I'm going to change up everything I'm doing. The vividness and recency of these leads is creating an illusion of abundant enterprise demand that may not exist. If you commit resources to these deals and don't close, or close but aren't repeatable, you've burned 6 months of runway and momentum on a mirage. So the de-biasing question we have to ask here, if these two inbound leads disappear tomorrow, would we still be having this conversation about going enterprise? And if not, what does this tell us about our actual confidence in the strategy? I love this. I love this. Okay. I'm going to go into another scenario here for pricing as well. I want to pause for a second and say, if you are finding this valuable, if you are seeing that, I think we could benefit from doing this kind of decision-making audit on our company. We could benefit from learning how to use these tools more effectively. We do these kinds of things as Kiingo. We also have a 6-week AI boot camp where we go over prompt engineering. How do you get started with these tools? How do you empower your employees to use AI more effectively? We go over all these sorts of things, different models, different use cases, prompt engineering, etc. So if that is you, please feel free to reach out to us. We also have an AI for marketing. Um, AI for marketing bootcamp. We've got a number of other things, AI agents if you want to start building your agents as well. And then we also have a peer group if you want to join a group of like-minded peers to talk about what is not working with our AI implementation and how do we adopt it more effectively. So I'm going to put my contact information in the chat. I'm sure you already have it, but I'll put that there and then you can see it on the screen as well. Let's go back to our example with Claude. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. We've seen a number of companies get some good success with that 6-week AI bootcamp. All right, so confirmation bias, right? You're only collecting evidence that supports the enterprise move. The fact that you frame concerns and then immediately dismiss them, such as the sales cycle might be longer, but this shows you're not genuinely interrogating risks. You're defending a decision you've already made emotionally. This is how companies walk off cliffs. Unanimous enthusiasm with no one pressure testing the assumptions. Where are the skeptics? Who's arguing the other side? The de-biasing question here is, what specific evidence would need to exist for us to conclude that now is the wrong time to go enterprise? And have we actively looked for that evidence, or are we only confirming data? I love this. Okay, there's also optimism bias. All of our evidence that we listed here, every benefit is stated as near certainty. Every risk is minimized or hand waved. This asymmetry is a screaming red flag. The reality is you're underestimating the cost by 50 to 100%. You're overestimating the speed by 30 to 50%, and you're assuming best case outcomes. Your 18 months runway could easily become 12 months of actual capacity once you account for hiring, ramp taking longer than you think, compliance costing more than you think, and deals taking longer than you think. So debiasing, if we honestly modeled the realistic worst case scenario where everything takes 50% longer and costs 75% more, which is standard for strategic pivots, would we still have enough runway to survive and course correct? I don't know about you all, but this to me feels very applicable. These are amazing biases that it's giving us here. And it's going to give us a bias risk, severe bias risk in the way that we have framed our question here. You are exhibiting a perfect storm bias pattern that typically precedes high stakes strategic failures. The clustering of high severity biases creates a dangerous reinforcement loop where each bias amplifies the others. The two core pattern, there are two external signals which are triggered bias action and availability, or action bias and availability heuristic, which activated confirmation bias. This led to groupthink, which inflated overconfidence and created optimism bias about execution. The planning fallacy is making timelines seem achievable, while loss aversion framing is manufacturing urgency. Meanwhile, survivorship bias and narrative fallacy provide intellectual cover for making the move seem inevitable and what successful companies do. So, bottom line, your decision has fingerprints of every major strategic failure pattern. The bias load is severe enough that if the strategy is directionally correct, the decision-making process is so compromised that execution will likely fail. Thank you, Claude. And maybe Claude is being a little bit too harsh on us here. But this is really getting down to the nuts and bolts of it, right? So Now, you've seen it's already given us some advice on how we can rethink this challenge and how we can reassess this, but I could just say something like, I understand, right? What do we what do we practically need to do and prove in the next 90 days for us to approach this in a more clear-headed way? Something like this, right? So now Claude's going to give us all this feedback about, okay, if you want to get serious about it in the next 98 days, let's turn this into an action plan. What do you need to do to determine whether this strategic shift is a good idea for your company? So do not prove the enterprise move is right. Instead, generate hard evidence to make an informed choice between three paths: full enterprise, hybrid and gradual, or double down on mid-market. So I love doing this with the models as well, taking your strategic thinking and moving it into a tactical action plan. This is where you actually get rubber to the road, valuable insights from these models. So appoint a chief skeptic. Designate one senior person as the official contrarian for 90 days. Their job is to attend all enterprise-related meetings with explicit permission to challenge, weekly pre-mortem sessions, assume we're failing, what went wrong, maintain a running risk register that gets reviewed in every leadership meeting. And what could we do from here, right? We could take this and we could say, I want you to put together a pre-mortem, which is going to be, let's say that we did make the strategic shift to enterprise. What are all the reasons that this failed, essentially? It's excellent at doing that. Define your decision criteria. Week 2 to 8, run parallel experiments. All right, so it's giving us these actual experiments as well and going into detail on all of them. And then week 9 to 10, give us a red team review, 11 to 12, a decision gate. And this is going to help us determine should we actually go to enterprise with hard facts and hard data and with skepticism built in here as well. Okay, I want to, I know this time flies by pretty quickly. I want to show you one other potential use case here, and we'll use Claude for that as well. Let's pull this up. We are going to be doing uh, a totally different company here. So let's say we are TechBridge Solutions. Our product is a workflow automation SaaS for mid-market manufacturing. And our decisions, we're considering raising prices by 20% for all new customers, with existing customers getting the increase at their next renewal. The thing I want the model to do is act as a strategic scenario planning expert, generating 3 distinct scenarios about what happens if we execute this price increase. So the best case is what conditions or outcomes might occur if this is our best decision, our realistic or middle of the path decision, and our worst case. And then describe, the key assumptions that go into that, the financial impact on our revenue, our customer count, our churn, and identify the 2 to 3 most critical success factors. And the other thing we could do with this is we could actually upload our financials, which would provide the model with a bit more insight. So we put our P&L into here, our marketing mix, any of those kind of, anything we can represent in a spreadsheet, the model can analyze that and then give us some more tangible and actionable feedback based on that. And then it could actually do some financial modeling for us as well. If you haven't checked out that, check out a recent training lab we did on using AI for CFOs and for finance. We went into analyzing spreadsheets. It was awesome. Okay. So in this case, our best case, our key assumptions is that the market validates the value increase and customers interpret pricing as a confidence signal. Manufacturing sector has budget for automation ROI. Competitive moats hold. Our differentiation justifies near Acme pricing, and Acme is the competitor that we put in this situation. The timing is right. So it says economic conditions are stable. Excuse me. Manufacturing CapEx budgets are healthy, and then execution is flawless. So our sales team effectively communicates the value. Customer success proactively reinforces ROI before renewals. And here's a bit of our financial projections. So then we're getting in here to our most likely scenario. The market is price sensitive at this threshold. Competitor Acme might respond. They either hold their pricing or add aggressive discounting to defend share. There's mixed customer reception. 60% of our existing customers accept that as reasonable, and 40% start to shop for alternatives. And there's sales cycle friction that starts increasing. And our worst case is The threshold violation. So this crosses into require CFO approval territory for mid-market and our deals start to stall. Competitive weaponization. Acme uses our increase as positioning or to position us as price unstable and themselves as predictable premium. So the market timing might be poor. Manufacturing CapEx tightens. Automation budget scrutiny increases. All right, so this is worst case scenario. The decision framework that we didn't, I think we did ask for this actually. So decision framework, pre-implementation testing for this full rollout, what do we have to do? And this is what Claude is saying. The math suggests a cautious proceed, but with three critical modifications. So do a staged rollout. New customers immediately, existing customers only after demonstrating value enhancement. Segmented approach. Apply 20% to customers with greater than 500K potential spend or high intensity use cases. Apply 12 to 15 for higher or price sensitive segments. And then for value enhancement bundling, don't just raise prices, simultaneously announce premium support tier, new integrations, or industry specific templates so increase is narratively justified. The risk of worst case is manageable but real. Your proximity to Acme pricing after increase removes your value option. So can you all see the value of this approach? Where we're asking the model to consider different scenario paths for us here. The next thing we could do is ask it to continue down this path and think about second order effects. So some cascading impacts. How might our sales team's behavior and morale change? How will they react? Which customer types might stay versus leave? How might our competitor react to our move? If this happens, then Y becomes more likely, which leads to Z, which are things that we might not be thinking about, right? So a vicious cycle is there might be a talent death spiral here. A positive loop is that our sales sophistication, it's a sales sophistication forcing function. So it's going to help us plan. It's going to help us go through different scenarios. It's going to help us think of second level consequences. It's going to push back on us, identify our assumptions. We can take this to look at strategic alternative options. We can also take this, and this is something that I love running through as well. Think about a council of voices. So let's say that we did have Warren Buffett on our strategic planning board here to help us with capital allocation and competitive moats. We had Peter Thiel to think about monopoly thinking. We had Patrick Campbell, who's a pricing expert, Chris Voss for negotiation expertise, and Clayton Christensen for disruption theory. And we asked each of these voices to challenge our assumptions or reveal any blind spots. Don't just give generic advice, make it specific to our situation, and end with the perspective that resonates most with our actual situation and why. So in this case, we are calling upon the world's experts for this particular situation, and we want to get their insights that we personally wouldn't have, and that additionally, the model would not typically recommend unless we prompt it to play the role of these different experts. Okay, so I know we are running up on time here. I want to respect your all time. I just want to say these models are incredibly powerful when we start thinking about how they can be used for leveraging our company growth, for increasing our company strategy or improving our company strategy. But we need to know how to use them effectively. So please feel free to reach out to us. We do a 6-week AI bootcamp. We will teach you how to do these things, teach you how to be a more effective CEO using these models, teach you how to build out your scenario planning, your decision matrices, your challenging your assumptions, etc., finding your cognitive biases. The amount of value you can get from just thinking more strategically is immeasurable, right? So reach out to us. We'll talk about whether our 6-week AI bootcamp may be a good fit for you and your team. We are also creating an AI for CEOs bootcamp specifically. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to reach out. If anybody has any last questions, feel free to throw that into the chat or reach out to us. We do a complimentary 30 minutes of AI consulting as well. So we are happy to do that for you and your company. I hope this was valuable for you all. Thank you for being here. Very much appreciate it. And we'll see you at the next training lab. Thanks.